Okay, let's get this straight right away. The GameMT EX8 is not trying to replace your Steam Deck or ROG Ally. It's not that kind of powerhouse, but that's actually the interesting part. This new upcoming handheld is shaping up to be one of the most surprisingly polished budget retro devices we've seen in a long time. Developed by GameMT, a relatively new player in the emulation space, the EX8 first popped up through a teaser trailer and some coming soon previews. And while not every spec has been finalized yet, what we do know paints a pretty cool picture of what might become the next favorite handheld for retro lovers. So let's talk about 10 insane things about the GameMT EX8, the budget handheld that might punch a little above its weight class. Retro-focused hardware that knows its audience. This thing knows exactly who it's made for people who love retro gaming. The X8 isn't trying to run Cyberpunk 2077 or Baldur's Gate 3, it's designed for classics. Think PlayStation 2, GameCube, Dreamcast, and everything before that. That puts it in direct competition with brands like Anbernic, Powkiddy, and Aeon, which specialize in emulation handhelds. But GameMT's twist. They're promising a more premium design and higher screen quality without inflating the price. So it's not a powerhouse, but it's a smart machine, built around nostalgia, tuned for efficiency, and priced for accessibility. Symmetrical thumbsticks with RGB rings. Now here's something you don't usually see on cheaper handhelds. Symmetrical thumbsticks. That means both analog sticks are placed evenly across the lower section, like what you'd find on a PlayStation controller, rather than the offset layout used by Xbox-style setups. And yeah, both sticks have RGB lighting rings around them. That might sound like a small thing, but in the handheld world, that's a premium touch. You can already imagine this thing glowing on your desk like a mini cyberpunk console. It's both practical and aesthetic, and definitely helps the EX8 stand out among the usual plain plastic handheld crowd. A high-resolution 3:2 display. This might be the part that sells the device for a lot of people. The EX8 has a 4.88-inch LCD screen with a 1080 by 1620 resolution. That's a 3:2 aspect ratio. Translation? Sharper image, better pixel density, and more accurate scaling for older retro games. Most handhelds in this price bracket still hover around 720p, but the EX8 gives you full HD clarity in a compact size. It's ideal for emulating handheld systems like the Game Boy Advance or PSP, which look amazing on that slightly taller 3:2 aspect ratio. Plus, the extra vertical space helps when navigating menus or playing older RPGs that were built for 4:3 screens. The MediaTek Helio G99 chip. Let's talk brains. The EX8 is powered by the MediaTek Helio G99, an octa-core chip that's been a go-to choice for efficient handhelds and budget Android devices. Now, it's no monster like the AMD Z1 Extreme, or even Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. But for emulation, the G99 is more than capable. Expect smooth performance for everything up to PlayStation 2, Dreamcast, and even some lighter Wii or GameCube titles with optimization. The best part? It's efficient. The G99 doesn't overheat easily, doesn't drain the battery like crazy, and keeps temperatures low, perfect for handheld gaming sessions that go beyond an hour or two. So while the EX8 isn't gunning for the AAA scene, it's tuned for the sweet spot. Affordable performance without throttling or overheating. Solid memory and storage setup. The EX8 is expected to come with 6 GB of RAM and 128 GB of internal storage. That's not groundbreaking, but it's respectable for its price range. 6 GB ensures smooth multitasking for Android-based emulation front ends, and 128 GB means you can load a pretty massive retro library right out of the box. And of course, if that's not enough, and let's be real, it never is, you can expand it further with a microSD card. It's that perfect mid-tier configuration. Fast enough for most users, big enough for flexibility, and easy to expand. Expandable storage via microSD. No one likes running out of space, especially when you're collecting ROMs, BIOS files, and texture packs. Thankfully, GameMT made sure to include a microSD slot right on the bottom of the device. That means you can pop in a high-speed card and expand storage instantly, whether you're emulating massive PS2 ISOs or storing media files for travel. It's simple, accessible, and something every retro gamer expects. But not every handheld executes well. Here it's neatly placed and doesn't interfere with hand placement or charging cables, which is always a plus. Active cooling with a built-in fan. Now this is something that caught everyone's attention. Unlike many budget handhelds that rely on passive cooling, the EX8 includes an active cooling system with a small fan inside. That's a big deal, because the Helio G99, while efficient, can still heat up under sustained load, especially with PS2 or GameCube emulation. A fan ensures consistent performance and longer lifespan. You might hear a faint hum, but that's a fair trade for preventing thermal throttling and keeping frame rates steady during longer play sessions. So yeah, active cooling on a budget handheld. That's pretty insane. USB-C charging port. Charging convenience is another win here. The EX8 uses a USB-C port. Finally, no weird proprietary connectors or outdated micro USB nonsense. It's placed at the bottom, which means you can comfortably charge while playing in handheld mode or resting it on a stand. And since USB-C is so universal, your existing phone or laptop charger will probably work just fine. It's one of those small details that really adds polish to the overall package. A respectable 5000 mAh battery. Battery life makes or breaks a handheld. Now that might not sound enormous next to something like the Steam Deck OLED, but remember, this device isn't pushing AAA graphics. For retro gaming, it's more than enough to give you anywhere between 5 to 7 hours, depending on what you're running. That's solid endurance for commutes, travel, or long nights of nostalgia-fueled gaming. Eye-catching color options and button design. Finally, we've got to talk aesthetics. The EX8 will come in two main colors, black and white. The black version gets red ABXY and D-pad buttons, while the white variant sports purple buttons, giving it a very Game Boy Advance SP-inspired vibe. It's subtle, but distinctive, and it helps the EX8 stand out in a market full of grey and silver handhelds. Combine that with the RGB rings on the thumbsticks, and you've got a device that looks surprisingly premium for its price bracket. So let's sum this up. The GameMT EX8 is no Steam Deck or the Legion Go, and it doesn't need to. It's carving out its own lane, an affordable, stylish and powerful enough handheld built for retro gamers who value aesthetics and practicality. And as always, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more handheld deep dives, retro gaming breakdowns and tech explorations every week. Catch you in the next one.